Hi, I'm Kathy. This week is part 2 in our 4-part series on how to put together a layered curriculum lesson plan. We started last week with our C layer, and we started by taking the layered curriculum lesson planner that's in the back of the workbook, and we photocopied it and made our own copy of it, and we put together our C layer. Our C layer was the basic objectives that we needed students to learn on this particular unit. The unit that I'm making my lesson plan on for this comes out of my textbook on vascular plants. So last week we went over the main objectives for vascular plants. We talked about vascular systems, we talked about seeds, angiosperms, gymnosperms, different types of cones, types of flowers, monocot versus dicot. So we've covered all those basic C layer objectives. Now what we want to do with the students is we want to move them into the B layer. And B layer, as you remember, is just a little higher up in Bloom's taxonomy in terms of it's not just your basic comprehension, basic rote information. Now we want to think a little more complexly. We want to play around with these concepts. We want to apply them to something else. We want to do some problem solving with them. We want to do an interdisciplinary assignment. We just want to web this information out a little bit more. We want kids to have an opportunity to be creative, to really take sort of a personal view of this information and do something unique with it. So what I'm going to do, and I've got a lot of B layer assignment ideas in my head that were generated as I went through my C layer. So I can take the second page of our lesson planner sheet on the B layer, and I can come up with some objectives that we could do with this information. One of the things that I could have the students do is compare and contrast. We can compare and contrast within the plant kingdom, or we can compare and contrast between kingdoms. So a couple of assignment choices that I have thought about for that is we could compare vascular and non-vascular plants. Non-vascular plants was the unit we covered last week. This week we're doing vascular plants. So I could have the students, some kids like to write a little report, and if they want to do that, they could actually write a report to compare and contrast vascular and non-vascular plants. So that could be an assignment choice. One of the other things they could do is compare life on Earth, adaptations for life on land. That was one of our C layer objectives. We talked about what did plants have to develop in order to be successful out of the water and on land. Well, we covered that several weeks ago when we studied the animal kingdom. We looked at the exact same transition from water to land. So that would be another area where I could have the kids compare and contrast. And I think this might be sort of fun to do in a graphic. They could actually put a booklet together for me. They could make a poster of it. They could illustrate it. They could make a cartoon. Any kind of visual representation that they wanted to show me, to compare and show the similarities and differences between how plants adapted to life out of the water and how animals adapted to it. So that's going to be another one here for my compare and contrast. We can take the plant kingdom and we can compare it to the animal kingdom, and that's going to be done in some sort of a graphic or visual representation, and again, that would be their choice. The other thing I thought about doing is some sort of a problem-solving lab, and I've got a couple of questions that go in there. So one of my other B layer topics that I want to cover is to do some kind of problem solving. And the two questions I thought of, number one is, does Miracle-Gro really work? So we look at fertilizers, do they in fact work? And the kids could set up a lab to show me yes or no whether Miracle-Gro or some other type of fertilizer, or maybe even want to compare Miracle-Gro to maybe a cheaper off-brand fertilizer. But they could do a lab, a problem-solving lab with that to show me that Miracle-Gro does in fact work, or it doesn't work, or it works just as well as a cheaper type of fertilizer. The other assignment choice that I thought of for problem solving would be about weed killers, because we talked about monocots and dicots. And to really understand that concept, then they would have to explain about weed killers for lawns. Why is it that you can put a particular chemical on your lawn and it only kills the weeds and not the grasses? So I would have them set up a lab, again, to demonstrate the whole monocot, dicot, and how these root systems are absorbing different types of poison so that it affects one plant and not another. So that's going to be another problem-solving lab for them. And then the third thing is I thought a scavenger hunt. We've been talking about plants. We've been talking about seeds, cones, male cones, female cones, parts of flowers, perfect flowers, imperfect flowers. I can put a great big long scavenger hunt list together. This would be something they could actually do outside of class. They could do this over the weekend or during the course of the week, but to actually put together, to find these things now that it's spring and it's time to go out and hunt and really demonstrate that they can find what we've been studying in a book out there in the real world. So we can put a scavenger hunt together, and I can give them a couple choices as to how they want to display that. They can just report it all to me, or they can display it out and turn that in. So I've got 3 B-layer objectives here for this particular unit, and I've got a couple of assignment choices on here. It's wide open as to how you want to have kids put these things together and display them. You can have them done as written reports, and that's perfectly fine too, maybe bringing in some research. You can have them done as visual and graphic displays. You can have them done as group projects, individual projects. It's strictly up to you, and I do encourage you again to keep a variety of types of assignments, because not all of our kids have the same gifts and strengths in all their areas. So that's how I'm going to put my B layer together. The B layer is asking kids to think a little more complexly. We want them to apply, manipulate, play with this, problem solve. Just take that C layer stuff and play around with it a little bit, and to really web it out in their brain and make some connections with it. For more information on how to put these together, you can look at the Layered Curriculum textbook, you can take a look at the workbook, or you can go to brains.org.